Your spicy fried chicken delivery has been instantly accepted by the delivery rider and is sprinting toward you at 80 miles an hour, expected to arrive downstairs in 3 minutes. So please prepare yourself for a carnival on your taste buds. The food delivery notification popping up on my phone made me, Phoebe, a 24-year-old full-time stay-at-home youth who believes in lying down whenever possible and freeloading whenever allowed, involuntarily shed a few unpromising tears at the corner of my mouth. Welcome to Panda's Storyboard. Put on your headphones, get cozy, and settle in. Let's enjoy this story together. If you like it, don't forget to subscribe and give the video a like. Now, let's begin. As a seasoned internet couch potato, my daily routine consisted of hugging my computer to binge dramas and play games, stuffing my fridge with takeout and instant food, and never stepping outside unless food or power ran out. At this moment, this bucket of deluxe fried chicken was the only light in my dull life. Just as I struggled to get up from the couch, preparing to sprint downstairs at the fastest speed of my life to retrieve my life-saving artifact, a soft ding suddenly sounded before my eyes, and a translucent blue interface box materialized out of thin air, floating right in the center of my vision. Detected that the host possesses top-tier Cosmic Coach Potato qualifications. Apocalypse Slacker System officially bound. Newbie task issued. Maintain the slouch and lie flat on the couch for 1 hour, during which no part of your body may leave the couch. Task reward: absolute safe house. Task failure: immediate explosion into a brilliant firework. What kind of hallucination was this? Or had my brain short-circuited from eating too much takeout? I rubbed my eyes hard, but the blue box stubbornly stayed in front of me, the text even flashing with an annoyingly smug effect. Are you serious, bro? Who are you? Making me lie there for an hour right off the bat? And what about my fried chicken? Because cold fried chicken has no soul. I complained furiously in my head, trying to communicate with this inexplicable system, but the only response was a cold, mechanical voice and a countdown that had already started ticking, at 59 minutes and 59 seconds. The punishment for failure was exploding on the spot, so I swallowed hard, glanced at the floating interface, then looked toward the door, weighing steaming, crispy fried chicken against spontaneous combustion with no remains. There was nothing to think about. I spun around sharply, flopped back onto the couch with a thud, struck a perfect slouch, stared blankly into space, and adopted a look of utter despair. I had barely settled in when my phone rang, and it was the delivery rider calling to say that my food had arrived downstairs and asking me to come get it. Using all my strength, I forced out a weak voice and asked if he could hang the delivery on my door handle, explaining very seriously that it wouldn't get stolen because our neighborhood had excellent security, and that I was currently sealed to the couch and physically unable to move. After 3 seconds of silence, the rider sighed helplessly and said, "Fine," calling me a truly lazy person before hanging up. I let out a long breath, relieved that my fried chicken was saved. I then stared at the ceiling, counting cracks, and when I reached the 18th one, the sky outside suddenly darkened without warning, dyeing the entire world a terrifying blood red as a scalp-numbing hum echoed from above. I instinctively turned to the window and saw massive black cracks spreading across the crimson sky like hideous scars, followed by countless monsters glowing with eerie crystalline light, dropping from the rifts like dumplings. Some looked like insects magnified hundreds of times with gleaming armored shells. Others resembled twisted metallic constructs with razor-sharp edges, and still others writhed with dense clusters of tentacles that were both disgusting and terrifying. When the monsters hit the ground, they smashed into buildings and streets with dull booms, and explosions, screams, and sirens instantly blended together, shaking the sky. My eyes bulged like copper bells as I wondered if this was a movie, because the special effects were way too realistic, especially when I saw a man downstairs get instantly splattered by a giant mantis-like monster that fell from the sky. My expression froze because this clearly wasn't CGI, and the apocalypse had arrived without so much as a trailer, despite the news just days ago claiming peace and prosperity. Warning, warning, apocalypse detected. System mode switching to survival mode. My mind went completely blank, as the only thought left was not to move. Absolutely not to move, because moving meant exploding, though compared to the grotesque deaths outside, turning into fireworks almost felt acceptable, Except it absolutely wasn't, because I hadn't eaten my fried chicken yet. 3, 2, 1, ding. Newbie task completed. Absolute safe house reward issued. The host's current enclosed space, room 802, has been reinforced by system rules and cannot be breached by any external physical or energy-based means. Reminder, do not open the door, or the rules will be void. As the system notification ended, the entire apartment trembled slightly, and an invisible ripple swept across the walls before vanishing, followed almost immediately by a deafening crash as the building shook violently. A woman's scream rose from downstairs and was abruptly cut off, making my heart clench, followed by the horrifying sound of claws scraping along the walls, like fingernails screeching across a blackboard. The sound climbed upward and soon reached my door, where something slammed violently into it, denting the metal inward as if it would shatter at any second. I clung to the couch in terror, too scared to move, imagining myself becoming monster hors d'oeuvres if the door broke, and desperately begged the system for help. The system calmly reassured me that absolute safe house rules were active, and that the door only looked dangerous, but was actually rock solid. And as soon as it finished speaking, the mangled door snapped back to normal without even a scratch. No matter how frantically the monster slammed into it afterward, the door remained unmoved, as though it were crashing into an unshakable mountain. I stared in stunned disbelief, realizing this system was actually pretty amazing. Just then, I smelled a faint hint of scorched aroma, and suddenly remembered my fried chicken, springing off the couch and rushing to the door to peek through the peephole. The hallway was empty, except for my delivery bag hanging on the door handle, beneath which black slime hissed as it corroded the floor, clearly left behind by whatever had just departed. I cautiously opened the door, snatched the bag, slammed it shut, and leaned against it panting, only to discover that while the chicken had cooled slightly, its aroma was still rich. As I gnawed on a drumstick and gazed at the apocalyptic blood and fire scene outside, I muttered indistinctly through a mouthful of food that if it was really the end of the world, could it at least wait until I finished this meal? Days passed like this, and by the third day after the apocalypse, I was sitting safely in my absolute safe house gaming, while listening to the corridor echo with shrieks and chaos, as the building's order had completely collapsed. The crystalline monsters seemed uninterested in sealed indoor spaces, as long as you didn't wander outside. But food and water wouldn't last forever, so survivors began testing doors under the pretense of seeking help, which was really just looting. This posed no problem for me, since my fridge was packed with instant food and soda, thanks to my lifelong habit of hoarding supplies out of sheer laziness. While I was happily mowing down monsters in my game, a young man in designer clothes but with hair like a chicken nest went door to door outside, banging loudly and announcing that his name was Alex, and his father was the chairman of the Jow Group. When he started smashing my door with a golf club and failed to leave even a mark, he collapsed in exhaustion, cursing the door as sturdier than his home safe. At that moment, the blue interface appeared again, issuing a daily task that required me to open a window and shout, "The weather is great today," 3 times, with the reward being a box of instant noodles that never expired, and the failure penalty being 24 hours of foot odor that could penetrate any physical barrier. Calling the system heartless would be an understatement. But after weighing the risks, I opened the window, inhaled blood and smoke-filled air, and shouted the phrase 3 times before slamming it shut. A box of instant noodles instantly appeared, and when I checked the peephole again, Alex was kneeling flat on the ground toward my door, begging me to take him as a disciple, after witnessing me apparently kill a terrifying monster with my voice alone. I had no idea that while I was shouting, a giant gecko-like crystal monster had been climbing toward my window, only to be shaken senseless by system-enhanced sound waves and fall to its death, a scene perfectly witnessed by Alex and nearby neighbors. Thus, Room 802 became legendary as the residence of a reclusive master, while I, the so-called master, was inside furiously smashing my keyboard after dying to a rookie mistake in my game, completely unaware that an even greater chaos was unfolding outside. The woman weaved and maneuvered among the monsters with swift, efficient movements, every strike landing precisely on their joints as sparks flew. She was dressed in a tight black combat suit that outlined her striking curves, and beneath her neat short hair was a cool, breathtakingly beautiful face. Her name was Amanda, a former close combat instructor. When the apocalypse descended, she had been on vacation, returning home, only to end up trapped in this city. Just as she finished off one monster, another seized the opening and lunged at her from the side. Amanda's gaze sharpened, and her body twisted at an almost impossible angle, evading the attack while the fire axe spun with the motion and slammed fiercely into the monster's neck. With a crack, the monster's head rolled to the ground, its body twitching a few times before shattering into crystalline fragments. After dealing with the last one, Amanda leaned on her axe and breathed lightly, several wounds visible on her body and her combat suit torn in places, yet her eyes remained as sharp as blades. She looked up at the residential building in front of her, knowing from earlier intelligence that there was a very powerful survivor inside who might become an ally. Just as she was about to head upstairs, a sudden mutation occurred. The ground split open, and a gigantic beetle-like monster the size of a small car burst out of the earth, its body covered in thick crystalline armor, the sheer pressure of its presence making Amanda's heart sink. The elite beetle monster let out a piercing screech, its massive maw locking onto Amanda, and she felt with chilling clarity that she had been targeted. This strike was impossible to dodge. It was over. A flicker of despair crossed her mind. At that moment, I, on the 8th floor, staggered sleepily to the window, wondering which idiot was making so much noise. The instant I pushed the window open, the system's notification sounded. Emergency mission. High-altitude throwing. Please throw the most convenient item at hand out of the window. Mission reward, guaranteed hit. Tell it. One-time use. Mission failure. The host will be tormented by the noise of the battle below for 24 hours and will be unable to sleep. High-altitude throwing. I froze for a moment. The failure penalty was insomnia, which was worse than killing me. I glanced around, and the most convenient thing nearby was the cactus I had been raising for half a year on the windowsill and nearly killed. Sorry about this, brother. I muttered under my breath, picked up the half-dead cactus, didn't hesitate at all, and hurled it straight down. Down below, Amanda had already closed her eyes, preparing to face death, but the expected attack never came. She opened her eyes in confusion and witnessed a scene she would never forget in her life. A small cactus descended from the sky at an extremely tricky angle, like a precision-guided missile. With a wet thud, the cactus plunged straight into the gaping mouth of the giant beetle monster and pierced out through the back of its head, carrying a small clump of dirt with it. Time seemed to freeze. The once arrogant monster stiffened in place, its huge compound eyes flickering twice before it collapsed heavily to the ground, utterly lifeless. Amanda slowly, very slowly, raised her head and looked toward the woman on the 8th floor, who had just thrown the cactus and was now yawning as she prepared to close the window. Under the moonlight, my figure looked utterly ordinary, even a bit lazy, yet the cactus I had casually thrown had instantly killed an elite monster that even she found troublesome. What kind of terrifying strength was this? That was no ordinary cactus. It had to be a weapon containing some terrifying power beyond her comprehension. And what seemed like a casual throw was in fact the result of precise calculations of wind speed, gravity, and the monster's weak points, a perfect display of effortless mastery. An expert. This had to be the master mentioned in the intelligence. Amanda's heart churned like a stormy sea, her eyes filled with shock and reverence. I closed the window and drew the curtains, completely unaware of what had happened downstairs, only feeling relieved that I could finally sleep in peace. Mission complete. Reward. Guaranteed hit. One-time talent stored in the talent slot. What kind of lousy reward is this? And it's even one-time use. I clicked my tongue, flopped back onto the bed, pulled the blanket over my head, and finally got a good night's sleep. Outside, Amanda stood facing the dark window of the 8th floor and solemnly gave a military salute. Across the hall in Unit 801, Alex, who had witnessed everything through the peephole, trembled with excitement. The boss struck again. I knew the boss was invincible, and he felt that clinging to this thigh was absolutely the smartest decision he could make. Early the next morning, I was woken by urgent knocking on the door. "Who is it?" I shouted irritably. "Boss, it's me, Alex, your loyal little brother." Alex's ingratiating voice came from outside, followed by, "There's a female hero who wants to meet you." I rolled my eyes, thinking this rich kid was really sticking to me, and pulled the blanket over my head, planning to keep sleeping. Optional mission released. Option 1. Open the door and form a team with the people outside. Reward, Team Aura. When team members are near the host, their mental state is less likely to fall into despair. Option 2. Refuse to open the door and continue as a lone wolf. Reward, absolute focus. Gaming will not be disturbed by any external factors. Please, make your choice within 3 minutes. I stared at the two options and fell into deep thought. The Team Aura sounded impressive, but seemed practically useless, since you can't beat mental stability, while absolute focus was honestly tempting, because I would never be disturbed while gaming again. But after thinking about the past few days, even with the system, being alone was indeed a bit boring, and if I ever ran into a system mission I couldn't handle, having a few people around could at least serve as cannon fodder. No, helpers. Fine, I'd just raise a couple of pets to kill the boredom. I reluctantly climbed out of bed, shuffled over in my slippers, and opened the door to see Alex's face full of anticipation, and Amanda standing behind him, radiating a murderous aura. The moment Amanda saw me, her pupils shrank slightly. The woman before her wore a wrinkled set of pajamas, her hair a bird's nest mess, and her face still foggy with sleep, looking nothing like the sage-like, unfathomable master she had imagined. Yet she immediately became alert, convinced this had to be the expert's disguise, because true masters often conceal themselves among ordinary people. Amanda instantly restrained her presence and cupped her fists respectfully toward me, thanking me for saving her life the night before. I was momentarily stunned by her martial arts-style courtesy and asked what life-saving favor she was talking about. She insisted that without my intervention, she would have died to the monster, praising my technique of turning even leaves and flowers into deadly weapons. Only after blinking for a long while did I realize she meant the cactus I had thrown, and I casually waved it off as a small favor, since explaining would be too much trouble. Alex nodded frantically at the side, claiming that to his boss, killing an elite monster was as easy as stepping on an ant. Amanda's reverence for me deepened even further, and she sincerely asked to follow me, now that the world had fallen into chaos. The system announced that option 1 had been selected, and the Team Aura had taken effect. I nodded and let them in, warning them that my place was small, and that they shouldn't bother me while I was gaming. They entered my apartment, and were immediately stunned by the clean, orderly space, the fresh scent in the air, and the refrigerator packed full of food, like a miniature supermarket from before the apocalypse. To them, this place felt like an entirely different world from the hell outside. I casually explained that it was just a pre-apocalypse habit, while they exchanged shocked looks, convinced that this unfathomable expert had planned everything to perfection. After pointing them to the sofa, I retreated to my room, the sound of my computer starting up, soon filling the apartment. As they sat there, Amanda felt her accumulated exhaustion and tension gradually melt away just by being in this space, making her even more determined to cling tightly to this golden thigh. I spotted a lonely bottle of cola, its production date from last year and clearly just about to expire. I twisted off the cap and gulped it down in one go, the icy cola sliding down my throat as the bubbles exploded on my tongue, making me burp in pure satisfaction. Task completed. Reward: Beginner Constitution Enhancement Serum has been delivered to the storage space. A warm current instantly spread throughout my entire body, and I felt my chronically under-exercised, weak body being injected with fresh vitality. My waist no longer sore, my legs no longer aching, and even climbing 5 floors in one breath felt effortless. Amazing. Just then, a dense rustling sound came from outside the convenience store. Amanda's expression changed instantly. This is bad. It's a monster swarm. Outside the convenience store's glass doors, more than a dozen mantis-shaped crystalline monsters crowded together in a black mass, waving their scythe-like forelimbs and ramming the glass crazily. It's over. It's over. We're surrounded, Alex said, his face turning deathly pale as he hid behind the shelves, trembling uncontrollably. Amanda also looked grim, because if they tried to fight head-on against so many monsters, they stood no chance at all. Boss, what should we do? He asked, looking at me with hope that this expert would once again create a miracle. I glanced outside, then looked at the empty cola bottle in my hand, and a flash of inspiration struck my mind. I remembered my one-time guaranteed hit talent and said calmly, "Don't panic." I weighed the cola bottle in my hand and said to Alex, "Give me that bent golf club of yours." Although Alex didn't understand, he obediently handed it over. I took the club, placed the empty cola bottle on the ground, and assumed a standard golf swing stance. Amanda and Alex were completely dumbfounded. "Boss, this is no time for golf," Alex said in disbelief. I ignored their looks, took a deep breath, and silently activated my guaranteed hit talent in my mind, setting the target as the rusty support frame of the rooftop billboard on the building across the street. The moment the thought fell, I swung hard. Bang! The empty cola bottle turned into a streak of black lightning, whistling through the air, slipping precisely through the gaps between the monsters, crossing the street, and smashing viciously into the rusted support frame of a massive billboard on a rooftop 100 meters away. With a sharp crack, the support snapped. The massive billboard, over 10 meters long, lost its final support and came crashing down with thunderous force. Boom! The billboard fell without deviation, smashing straight into the monster swarm at the convenience store entrance. In an instant, flesh flew and crystal fragments splattered everywhere. When the dust settled, the entrance was a complete mess, and all the monsters had been crushed into bloody pulp. Inside the convenience store, there was deathly silence. Amanda and Alex stood there with mouths agape, frozen like statues. They stared at me as I calmly returned the club to its resting position, my face serene, and only one thought remained in their minds. This actually worked. Boss, what kind of move was that?" Alex stammered, his voice trembling as his worldview was repeatedly shattered. "Using a cola bottle as a golf ball to knock down a billboard 100 meters away and precisely crush a group of monsters. Who would ever believe this?" Amanda was equally shaken and murmured to herself, "Striking the cow across the mountain, no. This is even more absurd than that. Is this the holy sword of physics?" The look in his eyes shifted from reverence to outright worship, because this boss's strength was completely beyond his imagination. Every time this person acted, it was so casual, so unreasonable, yet the results were overwhelmingly effective. "It's nothing, just messing around," I said lightly as I handed the golf club back to Alex, putting on a calm front while inwardly panicking like crazy. That single swing had almost drained all my strength, and if it weren't for the Constitution Enhancement Serum supporting me, I would have collapsed on the spot. "Let's go. This place isn't suitable to stay," I said, waving my hand and taking the lead out of the convenience store. Amanda and Alex snapped out of it and hurried to follow. After returning to the absolute safe house, the way they looked at me completely changed. Because if before they thought I was a reclusive expert, now I was practically a god in their eyes. I quite enjoyed being treated like a god, even though I knew I was really just a couch potato relying on the system. The next few days were calm, and occasionally some clueless monsters would wander near the building. But before Amanda could even act, the system would issue all sorts of bizarre tasks. For example, it would ask me to sing "My Heart Will Go On" out the window, causing a group of sound-sensitive monsters to be driven into mutual slaughter by my off-key singing. Or it would ask me to hang my floral boxer shorts on the balcony, and the strange light reflected by the fabric under the sun would send a group of light-averse flying monsters fleeing in panic. Amanda and Alex had already gone numb, firmly believing that every action of the boss contained profound meaning they could never comprehend. That day, the building's food reserves finally ran dry. "This won't do. We have to go farther to gather supplies," Amanda said as she spread out a map, explaining that according to the broadcast, the military had established a large shelter in the city center, which should be their ultimate destination. But before that, they needed to go to a large warehouse supermarket in the western part of the city, because the supplies there would be enough to last them until reaching the shelter. When Alex heard how far they had to go, his face turned pale, but Amanda shot him a glare and said that with the senior here, there was nothing to fear. All eyes turned toward me as I played my game without lifting my head and casually asked whether that supermarket had internet, a comfortable sofa, or food delivery. When Amanda answered no to all three, I waved my hand and said they could go themselves and not disturb my ranking grind. Just as Amanda took a deep breath and prepared to persuade me at length, the system's voice rang out again, announcing the start of the main quest and threatening that if it failed, the absolute safe house would be invalidated and the building would be besieged by 10 times the current number of monsters. My expression shifted repeatedly before I finally slammed my computer shut, stood up abruptly, and declared in an incomparably solemn and resolute tone that we could no longer indulge in comfort and must set out to save the common people. Standing by the window, I gazed at the devastated city at a 45-degree angle toward the sky, my eyes deep, proclaiming that for humanity's continuation and civilization's spark, it was time to depart. Amanda and Alex were utterly stunned by my sudden heroic aura, convinced that I was not truly lazy, but simply waiting for the right moment, and they swore to follow me to the death. With my back to them, the corner of my mouth twitched wildly, because all I really wanted was not to be surrounded and beaten to death by monsters. Alex said, "That's right, boss. Killing a chicken doesn't require an ox cleaver. Just let me handle this kind of rough work." Though even as he spoke, his legs were trembling. I waved my hand with a calm expression and said, "Don't worry, I know what I'm doing." The reason I volunteered, of course, was because that damned system had released another task. Show-off mission, attracting all monsters' attention in the plaza. Please draw the attention of all monsters in the square and hold for 3 minutes. Mission reward, Agile Footwork Experience Card. Time limit, 10 minutes. Mission failure. The host will receive the flat ground tripping debuff, meaning you will trip every time you walk, lasting 24 hours. For the elegant footwork of Agile Footwork, and also to avoid becoming an idiot who faceplants every 2 steps. This show-off was something I had to pull off. "You wait here," I instructed them, "and when I tell you to move, rush toward the supermarket's side entrance at full speed." "But boss..." "There are no buts," I said, in an unquestionable tone, leaving Amanda and Alex no choice but to shut their mouths, their eyes filled with worry and admiration. Look at that. The responsibility of a true expert. At the most dangerous moment, he always steps forward without hesitation. I loosened up my limbs, took a deep breath, and walked out from behind the cover. I strode straight into the plaza. My appearance immediately drew the attention of the monsters. The nearest monster let out a roar and lunged straight at me. I neither dodged nor retreated, simply pulling a coin from my pocket. "Watch closely," I said. "This is real technique." With a flick of my finger, the coin cut through the air and shot straight into the monster's eye. The immense force piercing straight through its brain, and before it could even let out a scream, it collapsed stiffly to the ground, killed in a single strike. The entire plaza fell silent for a brief moment, and then all the monsters erupted into chaos, their blood-red eyes locking onto me in unison, as if I were their mortal enemy. Good. Hundreds of monsters surged toward me like a tidal wave from all directions. Amanda's heart leapt into her throat, and Alex was so frightened that he shut his eyes tightly. Yet faced with such a terrifying scene, I smiled. I stood my ground and even advanced instead of retreating, flicking my fingers repeatedly at the monsters charging at the front. Whoosh! Several small stones shot out like bullets, instantly killing the monsters at the forefront. But this still could not stop the monstrous tide. Just as I was about to be swallowed by the swarm, I suddenly moved. My body turned into a blur, weaving through the densely packed monsters as if strolling through a garden. My steps looked slow, yet every time, at the very last instant, I evaded attacks with the smallest possible movement. Claw strikes, bites, and collisions. No attack could even brush the corner of my clothes. I was like a ghost, dancing on the edge of blades, graceful and unrestrained, and I even had the leisure to wave at Amanda and Alex, watching from afar. Amanda and Alex were completely dumbfounded. What kind of footwork was this, moving through hundreds of monsters as if there were no one there at all? Something utterly beyond their comprehension. If my earlier performance could be called powerful, then what they were seeing now was god-tier showmanship. Mission complete. Agile Footwork Experience Card has been issued. Friendly reminder. Remaining experience time, 9 minutes and 30 seconds. Damn! Time passed way too fast. I didn't dare mess around anymore and shouted while dodging. "Now! Go!" Amanda and Alex snapped out of it and immediately sprinted toward the supermarket's side entrance at top speed. Seeing this, I began retreating while fighting in the opposite direction, firmly keeping all the monsters aggro on myself. Before long, Amanda and Alex successfully entered the supermarket. After luring the monsters far enough away, I seized the right moment, felt the wind surge beneath my feet, and my speed suddenly increased dramatically. In an instant, I shook off the monster horde and vanished around a street corner after a few rapid flashes of movement. Several minutes later, I circled back from another direction and calmly appeared at the supermarket's side entrance. "All done. Come on in," I said as I pushed the door open and spoke to the two who were still worried about me. Amanda stared at me, completely uninjured, and not even with rumpled clothes, and after a long pause, managed to squeeze out 2 words. Monster. She no longer knew what term to use to describe this woman. The inside of the warehouse-style supermarket was a mess, with most of the food and daily necessities already looted by other survivors. But for us, what remained was more than enough. This is great. There's still so much stuff, Alex said excitedly, staring at the rows of shelves like a child. Amanda, however, stayed alert and warned. Don't let your guard down. There could still be other survivors or monsters inside.
The 3 of us searched the supermarket carefully, while my goal was very clear as I headed straight for the snack and beverage sections.
Just as I found a bag of potato chips and was about to tear it open, the system's voice sounded again. Scenario mission. Supermarket scare. Mission description. Hostile human survivors detected ahead. Please resolve them in an unexpected way. Mission reward. Actor's self-cultivation. A passive skill that makes any performance by the host highly convincing. Mission failure. All instant noodles you buy in the future will come without seasoning packets. This punishment was absolutely vicious, because instant noodles without seasoning were no different from eating dirt. My face darkened immediately, and I signaled to Amanda and Alex, who were collecting canned goods on the other side. Amanda instantly understood, crouching down and hiding behind the shelves, while Alex was a beat slower, but followed suit. Soon, footsteps echoed from deep within the supermarket, and 7 or 8 men holding steel pipes and machetes emerged. They looked sallow and thin, but their eyes were vicious, and the leader was a bald man with a scar across his face. This place is almost cleared out. Not much profit left, one of the underlings said. The scar-faced man spat on the ground and cursed. Damn it, there's not even a hair left, but that's fine. It saves us the trouble of searching more. I thought I heard movement here earlier, so let's check it out and rob them if there's some fat prey. They soon discovered the traces we left behind. Boss, footprints, 3 people, someone reported. The scar-faced man's eyes lit up as he laughed loudly, saying, There's a road to heaven you refuse to take, and no gate to hell, yet you barge right in. Brothers, find them, kill the men, and take the women. A lewd smile spread across his face. Hidden behind the shelves, Amanda's eyes turned icy as she gripped her fire axe, while Alex trembled uncontrollably, and I frowned. Unexpected. What really counted as unexpected? Killing them all with finger flicks was too direct, and showing off agile footwork felt wrong as well. I looked at the bag of chips in my hand, then at the dazzling array of goods on the shelves, and a bold plan formed in my mind.
Amanda, Alex,
stay here and don't move. Act according to my signal, I whispered, then took a deep breath and walked out from behind the shelves openly. What's that? The scar-faced group immediately noticed me and raised their weapons as they surrounded me. Don't come closer, I said, putting on a terrified expression, retreating step by step with a trembling voice, saying that I meant no harm. Seeing how cowardly I looked, the scar-faced man burst into laughter and said, Kid, you're unlucky. Hand over everything you've got, and your woman too, and I'll give you a quick death. I don't have any woman, I said fearfully, adding that I only had my friends, then suddenly pointing behind him and letting out a heart-rending scream. Sister, you died so miserably. That shout stunned everyone, and the scar-faced man instinctively turned around, only to see nothing there. You're messing with me, he roared in rage, raising his blade to strike. At that moment, the supermarket's broadcast system suddenly blared to life without warning. Sad music echoing throughout the store, along with a magnetic male voice singing, The bubbles under the sun are colorful, like the happiness of a fooled me. The sudden background music stunned everyone, and even the scar-faced man's blade froze in midair. I seized the moment, plopping down on the floor and beginning my performance, crying as I pounded the ground and wailed in a theatrical tone about my dear sister and brother who had died, how I had failed to protect them, and how these heartless bandits had robbed us of our food and brutally killed them. Even reminiscing about how we once fought from the east of the city to the west and dreamed of opening a chicken farm after the apocalypse. My performance was emotional and tear-jerking, amplified by the sorrowful music, and the passive skill actor's self-cultivation took effect. The bandits were completely dumbfounded, some even inexplicably feeling sad, with one underling secretly wiping away tears. The scar-faced man snapped back to his senses and roared, Cry your damn head off. When did I ever kill your brother? I suddenly looked up with bloodshot eyes and pointed at him, shouting that even if he turned to ashes, I would recognize him, that he was the murderer of my brother Hugo. Just then, Amanda and Alex rushed out from both sides of the shelves, as instructed, with Amanda shouting angrily for the killer to pay for Hugo's life, and Alex crying theatrically that he would fight him to the death. The sudden emotional chaos completely threw the bandits into disarray, and their combat power plummeted as Amanda cut several of them down with ease. I quietly stood up and flicked my fingers, sending several soybeans flying to precisely strike the remaining bandits' knees, dropping them all to the ground with screams. The entire process took less than a minute, while the sad music continued to echo through the supermarket. I stepped on the scar-faced man's chest and demanded sorrowfully to know where they had hidden Hugo's body, reducing him to tears as he swore he didn't know anyone by that name. After extracting the truth, we learned they belonged to the Black Tiger Gang, led by a man named Black Bear, who had awakened a metal-controlling ability and was holed up with dozens of men in the cold storage behind the supermarket. The system announced the mission complete and issued the reward, and I instantly dropped my sorrowful act and returned to my usual lazy demeanor, leaving the bandits utterly shaken by my lightning-fast change of face. I then gave them two choices, death or leading us to their boss, and without hesitation, they chose to guide us, bringing the three of us toward the cold storage area at the back of the supermarket. Then, I suddenly declared angrily that I was a messenger of justice, the embodiment of light, and that upon hearing there were evildoers running rampant here, I had come specifically to eradicate them. This over-the-top, middle-school-level introduction instantly silenced the entire cold storage. The members of the Black Tiger Gang looked at one another before bursting into uproarious laughter. Ha 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 ha. Where did this woman come from? Messenger of justice, this is killing me. Black Bear laughed as well, eyeing me with interest. Kid, you've got guts, but on my turf, justice doesn't count for shit. As he spoke, he waved his hand, and several twisted steel rebars beside him shot toward me like venomous snakes. Amanda and Alex's faces changed dramatically, but I neither dodged nor avoided them, merely reciting a line calmly. Your next words will be, how is this possible? The moment the words left my mouth, the rebars flying toward me abruptly stopped in midair, then shot back at an even greater speed than before. With a wet thud, before Black Bear could even react, his own steel rebars pierced through his body and pinned him firmly to the wall. His eyes widened, disbelief written all over his face, as he struggled to spit out a few words. How is this possible? His head tilted to the side, and he went completely silent. The entire cold storage fell into dead silence. Everyone was terrified senseless by the bizarre scene. I clapped my hands lightly, looking completely unbothered. I already said I'm a messenger of justice. Anyone else disagree? Wherever my gaze swept, the members of the Black Tiger Gang threw down their weapons and knelt, begging for mercy. Hero, spare us. We were forced into this. We're willing to follow you. I looked at this rabble and smacked my lips, having no interest whatsoever in taking in underlings. But at that moment, the system's voice rang out again. Hidden mission triggered. Founder of Order. Please integrate the Black Tiger Gang and establish your first faction in the apocalypse. Reward, faction management panel, and exclusive skill, King's Aura. I'm just an ordinary person who wants to lie flat and slack off. Facing the kneeling Black Tiger Gang members and this utterly scamming system mission, I felt a deep aching pain in my soul. Faction management panel. King's Aura? What the hell is all this? I just want to play games in peace, okay? Boss, what should we do with these people? Amanda asked as she walked over. The look in her eyes could no longer be described as admiration. It was the look one reserved for a god. That earlier move of returning force with force had completely shattered his understanding of reality. She even began to suspect that I wasn't from this world at all. I sighed, realizing that at this point I could only bite the bullet and go along with it. I walked up to the group, cleared my throat, and tried to look as dignified as possible. From today on, you're all working for me. The moment I spoke, the system prompt sounded in my mind. Activate skill. King's Aura. King's Aura. Passive. Enhances the host's presence, making it dignified and unfathomable, exerting powerful intimidation and persuasion over ordinary people, causing them to instinctively feel awe and a desire to follow. Activate. I muttered silently. In an instant, I felt my aura undergo a dramatic transformation. Though I still looked just as lazy as before, in the eyes of the Black Tiger Gang, my figure became incomparably towering, like a god gazing down upon all beings. My previously plain gaze now seemed as deep as the starry sky, making them afraid to meet my eyes. A soul-deep tremor spread through their bodies. "We swear to follow the boss to the death," everyone shouted in unison, their voices filled with fanatic loyalty. Alex stood off to the side, dumbfounded. "Boss, this aura is way too overpowered," he said, feeling his legs go weak and nearly wanting to kneel down himself. Amanda was equally shaken, sensing that the pressure radiating from me was even more terrifying than that of the highest-ranking commanders he had ever seen. It was absolute suppression, originating from the level of life itself. I nodded in satisfaction. This king's aura was actually pretty useful. "All right, get up," I said, waving my hand. "Scarface, you come here." The scar-faced man I had stepped on earlier scrambled over on all fours, obedient like a lapdog. "Boss, what are your orders?" "From today on, this place will be called the Coach Potato Gang, and you're the deputy leader," I said casually. "You'll manage these people, organize the supplies in the supermarket, and set up defensive structures. Understood?" "The Coach Potato Gang?" Scarface froze for a moment, thinking the name sounded a bit too sloppy. But when he saw my deep gaze, he shuddered and immediately replied, "Understood, guaranteed to complete the task. Long live the Coach Potato Gang. Long live the boss." I couldn't be bothered with these trivial matters, so after dumping everything on Scarface, I took Amanda and Alex and settled into the most comfortable manager's office in the supermarket. The office had a sofa, a bed, and even a working computer. Although there was no internet, playing offline games was still perfectly fine. My life seemed to return to its previous laid-back, salted fish state. I slept until I woke naturally every day, played games, ate snacks, and occasionally used King's Aura to handle gang affairs when Amanda reported in. Under my brilliant leadership, the warehouse supermarket was transformed into a fortress-like mini-base. Amanda handled training the gang members, while Alex, with his silver tongue, took charge of logistics and diplomacy, sweet-talking nearby survivor groups into joining. Everything ran smoothly and in perfect order. But I knew this peace was only temporary. My main quest was to reach the city center shelter. One day, after finally clearing the last offline game on the computer, I felt an unprecedented sense of emptiness. It was time. I stood up, stretched lazily, and said it was time to hit the road. When I announced that I was leaving the supermarket for the city center shelter, the Coach Potato Gang members were stunned. "Boss, you're leaving? Boss, are you abandoning us?" Scarface even clung to my leg, crying with snot and tears everywhere, begging me not to go. I felt my scalp go numb and kicked him away. "Stop crying, I'm not gone forever." Activating King's Aura, I said solemnly that the city center had a military shelter, the last hope of humanity, and that this trip was to scout the way and find a true future for the Coach Potato Gang and all survivors. My righteous speech, amplified by King's Aura, instantly calmed everyone down. Their eyes shifted from panic and reluctance to admiration and resolve. "Boss, truly noble. We respectfully send you off." I nodded in satisfaction and looked at Amanda and Alex. "Are you two coming with me or staying here?" "I'm coming with you," Amanda said, without hesitation, believing that staying by my side was the safest option. Alex quickly added, "Wherever you go, boss, I go. I'll carry your bag." And so, amid the tearful send-off of the Coach Potato Gang, the three of us set out once more toward the city center. The road ahead was even more dangerous than before, as the city's monsters had evolved to become stronger and more cunning. But to our current team, none of that mattered. Amanda's combat strength skyrocketed under my guidance and the system's rewards, while Alex, though still weak in battle, became increasingly skilled at talking his way out of conflicts with other survivor teams. As for me, I remained as unfathomable as ever, resolving seemingly impossible situations with absurd ease. We encountered a mutated tree demon that could control plants, which I defeated by sprinkling a packet of salt at its roots, causing it to dehydrate and wither on the spot. We ran into an invisible ghost hunter, whom I revealed with a sneeze, allowing Amanda to split it in half with an axe. We even met a superpowered man calling himself the Lightning King who tried to rob us, only for me to toss an iron rod into the sky, drawing down a bolt of lightning that fried him into charcoal. Amanda and Alex were completely numb by then. They felt that I might not be a god. I was the rules themselves. After half a month of travel, the massive outline of a city, surrounded by high walls and electric fencing, finally appeared before us. The city's center shelter. At the entrance, heavy guards stood watch, the atmosphere grim, and everyone entering had to undergo strict inspections. When the soldiers saw the three of us, they were stunned because we were simply too clean. Most survivors were ragged and emaciated, but we looked tidy, healthy, and relaxed, especially me, who looked less like a refugee and more like someone on vacation. "Where did you come from?" an officer asked warily. "Warehouse supermarket in the west of the city," Amanda replied. The officer frowned, saying that area had already been overrun by monsters, and asking how we got through. Amanda glanced at me, and I yawned and said, "We walked here." The officer felt his intelligence had been insulted, but when his eyes met mine, a sudden sense of awe rose within him, leaving him unable to ask another question. In the end, he could only wave us through. Inside the shelter was a completely different scene. Supplies were scarce, but order was maintained, and people wore expressions of relief, mixed with uncertainty about the future. I wasn't interested in any of that, and immediately began searching for the quietest, most comfortable corner. Finally, in a warehouse corner, I found a pile of soft supplies, my eyes lighting up as I dove onto them. Ah, comfortable. I sighed contentedly, preparing to sleep soundly. At that moment, the system's voice sounded one last time. "Main quest complete. System 2.0, Level L, permissions granted. Upgrade now? Mystery gift pack granted, open now." I rolled over, found a more comfortable position, and mumbled incoherently that I didn't care and not to disturb my sleep. Then, I drifted off. Sunlight streamed through the warehouse window, falling on my peacefully sleeping face, while in the distance echoed the bustle of the shelter and humanity's struggle for survival. And I, Phoebe, the strongest couch potato of the apocalypse, just wanted to lie flat here in peace.